What does it mean when a person who is like as American as apple pie embraces Islam in this time? What does it mean to their parents? Ultimately, what does it mean for themselves in terms of attempting to reconcile these two realities? Okay, I'm a Muslim now, but I'm American. Like there's no way that I can deny either one of those things because those are two real things. Part of what makes that whole process, I think, perhaps more difficult is that Islam is a very, very beautiful pre-modern Eastern tradition in its roots, right? But it's still living and real, and it's still speaking to people's wellness and their ability to kind of be fulfilled and become better human beings in this context. And you're like a completely modern, Western, you know what I'm saying, person. And so you're trying to reconcile those two things. And then on top of that, you have this reality that like the Muslim community is largely comprised of folks who hail from different places. So they have a different experience. They have their own cultural experience. They have their own lived reality and how those things color their experience as Muslims. So like, this is where the whole conversation of like the immigrant versus the convert comes in. But just like America and Islam, or America and the Muslims, is a false dichotomy that you have to be one or the other, the suggestion that the immigrant is the opposite of a convert is a fallacy on so many different levels. Number one, you have a bunch of immigrants converting to Islam. You have folks that are from Latino backgrounds that are converting to Islam, and many of their folks oftentimes are referred to as immigrants. So what does that mean when the Mexican brother or the Mexican sister converts to Islam? What does that mean about being an immigrant? Because now you can say, well, immigrant convert. Well, I'm an immigrant and I'm a convert. The Filipino. What does it say about the converts that oftentimes, like many of us, marry from families that hail from other countries that would be quote-unquote immigrants? Then what does that say about our children? So my dad or my mom was a convert, but my mom or my dad was an immigrant. You know what I'm saying? So what does it say about the children? Because now it's like within one generation or two, and definitely three, there'll be a critical mass of people who are neither strictly this, nor that. So all that goes to say that like, there is a reality to the fact that like, there's different people in the Muslim community with different experiences, and the suggestion that the way that we work that out is to homogenize everything and just say, no, we're all the same. Your experience is exactly the same as mine. It takes away the beauty of that person's experience. And if a person comes from a family that hails from a Muslim majority country, is born Muslim, then they ultimately have the question of like, how real is this thing to me? So either they A, stay very religious and are very Muslim from the beginning, from the outset. B, at some point in their experience, go off the path and do some other thing. Or C, which I would argue is a very common one, at a certain point they personally identify with being Muslim, and for all intents and purposes, they embrace Islam on their own level. Granted, they don't have to formally convert and what have you, but at the end of the day, they're like, okay, this is real, I'm gonna do this. And then for a lot of people, that their pressure is created in the family. The parents maybe think that they're too religious, or the parents are shocked, or what have you. And so there's their own conversation of reconciliation that has to take place in that family. And so I think for a lot of kids that come from parents that were Muslim, when they see the convert experience, they can very much identify with it. But because this reality of conversion to Islam is becoming so much more common, and I think that it's going to become all the more beautiful, and you're going to have people that convert to Islam that are going to bring a little bit more attention to their experience. It would be easy for someone looking from that perspective to feel maybe like slighted or somehow they're left out. Like somehow like, wow, like, like, what about me? Because I have a very similar experience. And when converts convert to Islam, a lot of times we are expected to be, you know what I'm saying, to be completely Muslim all the way. There's a lot of people throughout the Muslim world that are not necessarily that religious. But the point is they identify as Muslims, but they're not confused about who they are. And that's all this is about. It's just about as Islam comes here and Islam spreads in America, And I know that that's scary to some people. And that some people may, you know, that may sound like a threatening thing. To me, it's a beautiful thing. Like when we say that we're concerned about the individual, we're concerned about the individual because they represent part of a great whole. And that the approach in making sure that the individual is well ultimately speaks to the wellness of that whole. So it's not like focus on the individual at the expense of engaging the greater community, but rather engage the greater community by speaking to the needs of the individual, because those individuals make up that community. The agenda is to become agenda free. We have an agenda. We want you to be happy, you know? And I think, to me, that's at the essence of the Prophet's message, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It really was not about him. If it was, he could have done a lot of things differently. It was about people and making sure that people were felicitous here and hereafter. And if you create a space where that's real for people and it's not threatening, it's a no-brainer. And that, again, at the end of the day, it comes back to like what really works. Because you can preach something that's very lofty and very beautiful theoretically. How do you translate that into a live reality on the ground for people?